Hot barrels and tight lines, this is Bryan Muche, and welcome back to Conversations with a Sportsman. On April 5th, 2016, we sat down with Buddy Melges, world champion sailor, gold medal winning Olympian, and a passionate waterfowler and hunter. In this episode, listen to Buddy's account of a memorable duck hunt on Lake Geneva and the story behind a bronze star for meritorious shooting in Korea.
Most of my hunting was around here and watching birds. I can remember in 1951, I was home from service, ready to be shipped to Korea, and it was November, the Thanksgiving weekend, and myself and my father and two friends killed 25 canvasback on the south point of the Narrows of Lake Geneva. That was a hunt that I always remember. I woke up in the morning, went down, and there wasn't a breath of air, but it was clear. And the canvasback were just zinging over the top of the trees, paying no attention to my decoys, and they were going off of a quarter-mile east off the country club into that celery bed and landing. And I can remember my friend and I were sitting there, and it was about 8:30 in the morning. Finally, my father came down, and he said, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, gee, and by now the wind is up to about 8-9 miles an hour." I said, "The canvasback were coming over the trees, and they wouldn't pay any attention to our decoys. They went out and landed, and now they've been coming back, but they've been going outside the decoys, paying no attention to them." And he's standing by a tree right behind the blind. And he said, "Well, here comes a flock." So we sort of hunched down. We were right on a point with the rocks as our frontal blind. And these birds went by, and it's blowing 15, 18 now, and all of a sudden they sort of sidewind right into the blocks, and we stand up and boom, boom, and we kill I think 3 ducks, and I turned around and Father was getting in his car, and 5 minutes later he came back with his gun and he says, "Move over." So, that ended up to be that 25 bird hunt that was unbelievable. Well, first of all, I was with the artillery and in Korea, and at first I was a radar guy that would get low projectiles, identify them as they're coming in, and be able to give a reciprocal quadrants, and we would open up the artillery on that coordinate and go. And then because I had gone also to a supply school, when the supply sergeant left our outfit, our headquarters outfit, they appointed me supply sergeant. Well, that was all right too. So when I was there, the warrant officer was down in Seoul and bringing back a load of gear for the compound, and with it he brought back a Marlin over and under shotgun and 6 boxes of shells, and I said, "What are you going to do with those?" He said, "Well, I don't know. The colonel was talking about raffling it off to the headquarters." And I said, "Well, why don't I just buy it from you now?" He said, "Well, that's all right." So for $70, I bought the gun and 6 boxes of shells, and I knew there was pheasants around, but I also seen some ducks. But as it ended up, I went out the first day and killed 5 pheasants. I didn't, discriminate against a hen or a rooster. And I brought them back, and I was with the motor pool squad tent, and one of the guys was from Mount Clemens, Michigan. He grabbed those birds, cleaned them up, and made arrangements to cook them on our potbelly stove in the tent. From there, the first night or so, everybody really enjoyed that, along with their beer rationing. And then the couple of days later, I went out hunting again, and we killed a couple more and than the day before, to the point where finally, just pheasants weren't enough. You had to have maybe some potatoes and some of the other amenities that make a meal. And the first sergeant came busting into the tent one night and said, "Who the hell is, stealing all this stuff out of the mess tent? And what are you doing that for?" And everything else. About that time, one of the guys put a pheasant breast in one hand and a beer in the other hand, and he sat there for a minute and he said, "Well, who's ever doing this? I want him to go out and shoot some birds for the officers' mess." And I said, "Yes, sir." So then when I got ready to rotate, I think the colonel had given the warrant officer a bunch of static about selling that gun to Buddy Melges or Sergeant Melges, excuse me. And as it ended up, he put me in for a Bronze Star. And when I got home, one day a colonel showed up at the boat works where I'm working on varnishing a boat. And he comes in and he says, "Sergeant Melges?" And I said, "Yeah." I thought, "Oh my God, what did I do now?" And he says, "Well, I'm presenting you with a Bronze Star for meritorious service to the United States." And I said, "Well, that's wonderful." I didn't say much, and my old man was standing there looking. He didn't know what to think of that. And he said, "What did you do to get that?" And I said, "Geez, Dad, I think the only thing I can remember is I meritoriously shot pheasants." So that's the story of my bronze medal and shooting pheasants in Korea.